Drive to Survive's first ever episode starts with the life of Daniel Ricciardo, back then a driver for Red Bull. Because of how the show started and because of its immense audience, Ricciardo became a household name. People had a lot of expectations from the guy, but he just failed to deliver. Let's explore what's been damaging him and how he can turn it around before it's too late. First up, F1 pundit Martin Brundle reveals what's been damaging Ricciardo. Martin Brundle is a former British Formula One driver who's now become a renowned pundit. He was also a commentator for the sport in the late 90s and early 2000s. Brundle believes Ricciardo has failed to reach his full potential and has speculated as to why that has happened. According to Brundle, it all started at Red Bull. In 2017, at the Baku Grand Prix, Ricciardo had what is still known as the best race of his life. He started in the 10th position. After an ugly start, he fell to the 17th position, but then the handsome, his words not ours, racer fought all the cars to gain first position to score a maximum number of points. His then teammate, Max Verstappen, also the current world champion, had to retire his car due to an oil leak in the engine. Maybe that's why Ricciardo won. He had no pressure from Max's side. But whatever the reasons, his victory on that chaotic day near the Caspian Sea is still talked about to this day. And then comes 2018, and the story is just totally different. Rather than a crazy rise through the field of cars like in 17, he got stuck battling for 4th position with his teammate Max Verstappen. The two were banging tires and scratching paint throughout the race, and then, when there were only 11 laps to go, they both crashed. It was a terrible day for the team. Verstappen moved twice to save from the crash, but then he braked hard, guaranteeing mutually assured destruction. This may have been the incident that led to Ricciardo's downward trajectory. That was pivotal, wasn't it? Formula One pundit and British ex-racer Martin Brundle told Fox News. He could easily have won that year without that sort of unnecessary crash there with Max. The next thing that happens is that an incident that is mostly Verstappen's fault is blamed equally by the team principal. This is when Ricciardo realizes that Red Bull just doesn't have the place for another alpha. Daniel Ricciardo has called himself hot and handsome on several occasions. On top of that, he believes he's the best racer. He's also a showman. Most of these qualities are also possessed by his teammate Verstappen. When two people with just too much personality collide, literally and figuratively, they can't work together. So Ricciardo now had two choices. Firstly, he could just leave Red Bull altogether, go to another team and become their number one driver, or he could stay at Red Bull and play the role Bottas did for Mercedes, or what Sergio Checo Perez is doing for Red Bull. So he went with option 1 and moved to Renault to become their number one driver. Afterward, he moved to McLaren, and that added to his downward trajectory. Next, Renault and McLaren weren't enough. Despite Renault Racing being backed by one of the world's largest auto manufacturers, they couldn't let go of the midfield. Formula One fans had quite a lot of expectations from Renault. They also had massive support from the French people, as Renault is partly state-owned. However, despite so much money and support, their car just wasn't good enough. It was mediocre at best. Even Hamilton at the wheel couldn't have done much for them, so the 2 years he spent at Renault, 19 and 20, really hindered his progress. He went from being a prospective world champion to a midfielder, hanging out with the likes of Ocon and Magnussen. So with Renault's future uncertain, he made the move to McLaren. McLaren was once an extremely prominent name in F1. When Lewis Hamilton left the team for Mercedes, it was considered a foolish move. However, McLaren fell off its course, but from 2020 onwards, they're prominent again, and they're hungry for more. However, at McLaren, he has another problem: Lando Norris. It's well known that Ricciardo's struggling at McLaren. It's also quite clear that Norris, who's inexperienced compared to him, outperforms him in most races. The Australian's having some issues adjusting to McLaren's car. Being a 10-season veteran, it's difficult to adjust his driving style to his new car. Although, in the last half of 2021 and the first few months of 2022, he showed a lot of promise. But then, Spain and Monaco showed how terrible everything was. It was the same in Baku last weekend, when he played with our emotions all over again and performed well, qualifying in the 12th spot and finishing the race in 8th position, ahead of Norris. So we're not giving up on the Honey Badger just yet. So, can he turn it around before it's too late? Martin Brundle isn't ready to count him out either. last weekend's race was a fresh reminder of what the driver has to offer. It's been 5 years since he won that race, and now he's proved maybe he can win it again. It has shown that Ricciardo can win from the back of the pack too. MCL 36 might not be a winning car, but according to Brundle, we only need a glimpse to remember how good Ricciardo can be. Martin's closing remarks were, "Form is temporary, class permanent." That shows how much promise Ricciardo still holds. But now, let's move on to some other exciting news brought to you straight from the world of Formula One. Next, in other news, Verstappen isn't yet ready to let go of DRS. So here's what's up. F1 decided to renew all of its technical regulations for the 2022 season. The cars need to now generate a lot more of their downforce from the road. This is so they don't have to rely on undisturbed air flowing over their spoilers or wings. So because of these regulations, cars are now able to follow each other much closer in tight corners, although this hasn't resulted in more overtaking. So taking DRS out now would take the thrill out of the cars. As of right now, most of the thrilling actions that fans now expect from F1 still come from the DRS. Verstappen believes that DRS is necessary for Formula One. He stated that without the system, races would be more processional than action-packed. So despite the new generation of cars, DRS is still needed according to him. Verstappen has taken this position because he's the only driver right now who knows how these new cars drive without the system. Red Bull had a DRS issue in Spain, which got frustrating for Verstappen. He also stated that he was stuck behind a much slower Mercedes just because his flaps refused to work. So banning the system now would only make these races boring. Verstappen said that the effect of having less dirty air was offset by the reduced drag by this generation of cars. These cars punch a smaller hole in the air, causing issues for the car following behind them. He further added that it's easier to follow due to less drag, but you'll still need DRS to go into the first turns of most circuits. And now, 91-year-old ex-chief arrested in Brazil. The former F1 chief was arrested recently in Brazil for carrying unregistered weapons. He was arrested at the airport when security found an unlicensed gun in his luggage. However, being as rich and influential as he is, he was released shortly on bail according to the media and the Brazilian police. According to the local media, the British business magnate was detained at the Viracopos International Airport. At first, the police didn't confirm his arrest. They just claimed that an unnamed businessman had been detained after airport security agents found a .32 caliber pistol in his luggage during a security check. The gun wasn't loaded, and it didn't have a magazine. But then, security officials in Brazil notified that it was indeed Bernie Ecclestone who was arrested. He has told the police that he didn't even know that the gun was in his luggage. He claims that he bought it about 5 years ago from an F1 mechanic. He has acknowledged that he owns the gun, but claims to be fully unaware that it was in his luggage. Finally, Ferrari ends Baku with a humiliating two-way DNF. This weekend wasn't glorious for this year's second favorite, Ferrari. At first, Carlos Sainz's car started releasing smoke and had to be retired. Then Leclerc had a power unit issue, which also forced him to retire. 2 DNFs versus Red Bull's 1-2 finish must have stung Ferrari. Not to put salt on Leclerc's wounds or anything, but Leclerc had the fastest qualifying lap, which put him in pole position. Here's a fun fact though. Max Verstappen has won more races from Leclerc's pole than Leclerc has. Ouch. Sainz and Leclerc believe that the car is having reliability problems and they need to be addressed. Will they be addressed before the Canadian GP? It's anyone's guess at this point. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Do y'all think it's over for Ricciardo, or can he still turn it around? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you guys next time. Bye!